morning, ladies and gentlemen. More ladies and less gentlemen, I believe, which is great, which is the way it should be. It's been about 585 days since the Chibok girls were taken away in the middle of the night by truck by the Boko Haram. Since then, some of them have returned, but several of them have not. More than 200 of them have still not returned home, and we still don't know where exactly they are. Which is why there is the significance of one woman who keeps reminding us that there are women who need to be rescued even as we speak. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor to have with me Obiageli Ezekwesili. I hope I've got that right. Co-founder of the viral campaign Bring Back Our Girls. She's also a former vice president of the World Bank in Africa and Nigeria's former education minister. Please put up your hands for this remarkable woman.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Obi, for being here. It's a significant week that we are discussing Boko Haram because it's a week when the world has reeled under the attacks in Lebanon and in Paris, and the Islamic State is top of the mind. But the fact is that the world's deadliest terror organization as we speak is Boko Haram. The latest figures show 7,512 people killed in the last 12 months, which is a 300% increase in terrorist fatalities. Just how bad is it? And do you see hope in controlling Boko Haram?
It is very bad. The way that I put it is that every time we lose a single human being in our world, something dies in every one of us. So you imagine a situation where in a year, a country has lost more than 7,000 people. You can't even begin to think of the possibilities that we lost as a result of those people. How do we know that we did not lose one of the persons that would solve the greatest problems that we are wrestling with in the world? Human capital is what the world needs. We should not be losing people to unnecessary deaths. To your question as to whether I see hope, I always see hope. Hope is inexhaustible. The day we stop hoping, we all die. And so for me, I believe that beyond staying hopeful, what needs to happen is that the leaders of the world need to find their strength. There is something wrong with leaders navel gazing when fire is on the mountain. I really do not understand how it is that the leaders of the world sat around and watched a renegade group become the monsters terrorizing the entire world. How did that happen? Under the watch of leaders of the world.
Linked to that is a question that is a notion of tyranny of distance, or what I would call tyranny of distance. Because Paris is in the heart of the Western world. The world will know about ISIS. It will keep playing on television channels and across the world media. At the end of the day, Nigeria is not on the world map. So do you believe that there is this notion of tyranny of distance, that the global world needs to wake up when Boko Haram abducts 300 girls, and not only wake up when tragically more than 150 people or 130 people are killed in Paris?
I've always said that terrorism is one of the global public bads that we need to get a handle on. You know, it does not situate itself within a boundary. By virtue of the fact that we are faced with indoctrination and ideological warfare, as it were, and then we have innovated to the point where knowledge is migratory by virtue of the technologies available to us. It is clear now that this whole call for my sovereignty and my territory, it's now an artificial construct. It means, therefore, that we have to look at challenges like terrorism differently. When the Chibok girls were, our Chibok girls were abducted, and I had reason to speak up and continue to speak up and to say to the world leaders, don't leave this to my country alone. I kept saying, don't you dare think that this would be happening only in some neck, some neck of the wood that is so far from you. You can never imagine how quickly this might travel. Deal with it, curtail it, and ensure that this does not become a situation where, by sheer dereliction of duty and a lack of sense of empathy for humanity, simply because you don't think that someone who looks like you is being affected, you then end up being a victim yourself. We're all victims. It is time to just drop all of these political expediencies that have kept leaders from understanding the importance of working together. Citizens across nations don't want leaders who are sitting in the comfort of leadership and postponing action. It is time to act. Citizens can't wait anymore. It's time to act.
Is that what drove you to the Bring Back Our Girls campaign at the moment? Is that what, this belief that the world needed to wake up to the fact that there was this terrible tragedy unfolding in Nigeria? Was that to try and somewhere gather empathy? Was it first to gather attention? What sparked off your campaign?
It was everything. 59 young men had been killed the February before that the April incidents of our girls. 59 young men in cold blood by terrorists and burnt to ashes. And they even insulted our sensibilities by showing it and thumbing our noses, their nose at us. And everyone, I was thinking, this has to be a turning point in this war. I mean, I just couldn't imagine human beings being so undignified. I mean, there is something that's basic human dignity. And when it's stripped and we don't feel assaulted, I thought, no, this is not right. So I put out my voice and I said to my country, I said to the government, this must be the time you make a clear statement to these fellows that we're not going to sit around as a country, as a people, and watch them do this to our children. I thought people were going to be as angry as I was. And, I kept shouting for 1 week, and nobody felt anything. 2 months after, what do you think happens? The terrorists got bolder and said, since 59 boys were killed by us and it meant nothing to them, they really don't care. So we'll go for their girls and would go 5 times the previous number. So they took 276 girls who had gone to get education. My dear friend, what is education? Education is the tool of empowerment. It is education that got you and I this far. How many of you in the room could have been what you became without education? It's almost impossible. This is the tool of greatest economic and economic and social mobility and progression. So these girls voted for education. Are we going to turn our backs on them? They were in very hostile environment. The situation in the Northeast was already very tragic and dangerous, and yet they went to school. We lack the moral credentials to tell any girl child to go to school if we don't do anything about our Chibok girls. Because the truth is,
why do you think they targeted schoolgirls? Because they've, over the years, targeted schools. They've, attacked more than 1,000 schools, destroyed them over the years, particularly near the Chad border. Why do you think they target schoolgirls?
I mean, it's simple. Some of these deluded fellows also have some strange ideas in terms of sexuality. And so some of the times the attempt is at debasing the young women or even old women. Sometimes they take pregnant women. you can't account for the kind of mindset that these fellows have. But, I put much more responsibility on the shoulder of leadership. The truth is, people are going to behave with rascality and recklessness. But the reason that we have decent societies is so that people have responsibility and accountability for ensuring that society functions on the basis of basic decency and orderliness. The people who have that responsibility must be called to act. I don't even want to imagine that you can sit down with someone who thinks that the best way of getting their ideas across is to kill their fellow human beings. I can't see the basis for that conversation. But I can see the role of the nation state as the instrument that has hemogenic power over the resources that can tackle problems, standing up in its full force and acting. And that's what I'm calling for. Our girls don't need just my country to act. Our girls need the entire world to feel traumatized that any child anywhere in the world is put under this kind of danger simply because they are seeking knowledge.
You spoke about the responsibility that global leaders have. And this is familiar perhaps to an Indian audience. The security advisor to your president is accused of stealing $2 million in phantom contracts, money that could have perhaps gone into fighting the Boko Haram. Do you believe that our political leadership, whether it's in Nigeria, whether it's in any part of the world, simply doesn't realize the magnitude of the challenge, or is corrupted and morally depraved, as a result of which they don't even have the credibility today to take on the Boko Haram or any terror group?
Well, in the early 90s, I happened to have been considerably younger than I am now. And
were you?
Why do you do that to a lady?
I would have thought your spirit was remarkably young.
So we started an organization. You're very kind. We started we started an organization that the world knows as Transparency International, which works to put the matters of corruption and the necessity to tackle global corruption on the global agenda. And, it's more than 20 years afterward, we're no closer to getting political leaders to understanding the devastation that corruption does to societies as we were when we first started. Now, think of it. People assume that corruption is simply about people taking money and that's it. No, corruption kills. Corruption kills when corruption results in the procurement that ought to happen for security and not being properly purchased. Corruption kills. Some of our soldiers were running from Boko Haram because they had no weapon to fight back. Corruption kills. Corruption kills when women die needless deaths in hospitals because a minister of health or the permanent secretary decided that it would be better for the money for hospitals well equipped to be sitting in their silly bank accounts than to do the work that it ought to do for the poor citizens. Corruption kills when instead of school systems that function, a minister of education and directors and permanent secretary and the business sector, they are not spared. It takes two to get corrupted. And they all function in that corruption. And then the school system is a mess, and children go to failing school systems, don't get the knowledge that they should get. They are consigned to the rubbish bin of history because of corruption. So, in effect, what the National Security Advisor in my country needs to account for is how come that $6 billion annually of investment in defense and security expenditure, we found ourselves in a situation where a bunch of savages grew to monstrous proportion and now terrorize not just us, but the rest of the world.
In fact,
Accountability.
accountability is a good word to use for our political class when it comes to fighting terror. I just want to throw to a video because, this is what Boko Haram actually does and what they've done to the girls. And I'm going to ask you about this. Let's just play this video, November 2014, soon after these girls were abducted.
Abun mamaki yau da matan Chibok, ma'ana iyayen matan Chibok, da babansu da sauransu da za ku san yau 'ya'yanku mata halin da suke ciki, ko wani ya zama masa alheri ya musulunta ko kuma wani dan bakin ciki ya mutu. Ba ku san matan 'yan Chibok 200 da wani abu duka sun musulunta ba? Yarinya da kanta take cewa wallahi addinin musulunci ne gaskiya, kuma 'yar Chibok wanda form 6 makaryata mun auratar da su suna gidan mazajensu.
That's chilling. We saw the leader of Boko Haram saying the Chibok girls have been converted to Islam, married off, some of them have been sold as sex slaves. What do you think has been their fate? And what is this Islam which we've seen it with ISIS, we see it with Boko Haram. I mean, what is the fate of the girls, and what is this extremism that is justified in the name of religion?
We don't want to speculate in terms of what has happened to our girls. I am always driven by analytical evidence or factual evidence. We don't have that because so far the world has failed to apply the best of technologies in order to trail and to trace the path of these girls so that they can give credible evidence to us as to what exactly. Can they try and reconstruct what happened the night of the 14th of April 2014? We need the people with the resources to do that. You and I can't do that. We would just be speculating. Is that gentleman and his little army, are they greater than the armies of the world? That's my question, my dear friend. I don't want to dignify that. I want to place responsibility where it belongs. Let the leaders of the world rise up and take on these. We can. It's not only in the US elections that we can. We can. We can.
And what would you say to those who claim to do this in the name of religion?
It's not religion. I can't imagine any religion telling you that your greatness is assured in killing your fellow human being. That's not religion. I have a number of my Muslim friends who speak up on this, and they talk about the fact that if the Quran places a lot of emphasis on the rights of women, the rights of the right to knowledge, so they have debunked a lot of this. So my sense is that we have an evil ideology, and it's an indoctrination that's going on. It is countering our civilization. Are we going to let it happen? Or are we going to rise up and say our civilization is being traumatized by a bunch of renegades and we can fight back and win? I believe we can win this war.
Your words sound hopeful. There are those who say there are no hope of finding these girls. As I said, some believe they've been forced into the sex trade. Others say they've been raped, killed, tortured, married to their captors. What do you say to those who out there will say there is no hope? At the end of the day, how do you fight people with guns who are determined, in a sense, to spread this kind of terror? Is there hope for the girls, for the Chibok girls, in your view?
Yes. There is absolutely no evidence to the contrary that our girls are somewhere. Until the person who says to me there is no reason to hope presents me with the reason why I should stop hoping, I am going to keep up with hope, because hope is inexhaustible. Hope never dies. Hope always finds itself in action. And that action is what I keep asking for every time that Tina Brown and colleagues give me the opportunity to say to the world, our girls are still not back. Bring back our girls.
there's that great Eddie Grant song, Give Me Hope, Joanna. We're going to say, Give Me Hope, Obi. Ladies and gentlemen, a big hand for Obiageli Ezekwesili and her wonderful fight against the Boko Haram. Thank you very much, ma'am.